Hi, this is James from Tabletop Gaming Guild, and today we're going to take a look at Biome Borneo. This is published by Goat Rock Games, and this is going to be a preview video. So this is going to be a prototype of the game. Now, that means that any of the art or the components or even some of the gameplay are subject to change, so keep that in mind. In Biome Borneo, we are trying to save the rainforest of Borneo and make awareness of all the cool diversity that is in this rainforest region. Let's go ahead down to the table here and I'll give you a general review of how to play the game, and then we'll come back and I'll give you my final thoughts. Alright, so just a reminder, this is a prototype of Biome Borneo. So this is the components, and the cards can be subject to change. As you see here, this is going to be the classic biome setup. Now there's actually several other ones. You can do any of these on here, or you can make your own unique setup for the game. I would suggest, if this is the first time playing, just use the classic setup for the game. And just to go over a couple things to start, Biome Borneo was developed in partnership with the Project Borneo to introduce a beautiful yet vulnerable new world to players. Your purchase is an investment into protection and conservation of these incredible species that will allow the world's oldest rainforest to regain its ability to flourish. Throughout the game, you're going to be playing in this rainforest here. There's going to be several layers to the rainforest that you can play in. This is going to be the lowest level, this is going to be the medium level, and this is the highest level of that rainforest. And you're going to be placing these tiles on these different sections. Alright, so the different layers are, this top one is the canopy, or sorry, it's called the emergent layer. This one's the emergent layer. This one's the canopy, and this is going to be the bottom layer, or understory. Now, throughout the game, you're going to be using these cards and these. You're going to have different objectives that you're going to try to complete and global objectives that come out. To start the game, depending on the player count, you're going to get a different amount of tiles. And you will always have 5 cards. So you're going to deal out 5 cards to each player. Now, throughout these cards, there's going to be different types of cards in the game. There's going to be these objective cards. There's going to be these action cards. And these action cards sometimes have specific times you can play them, but the action cards aren't counting towards your actions for the turn. You can play them whenever they either list or whenever you want. And these cards here are what you're trying to really do throughout the game. And I'll explain those in a second. For tile pickup, if it's a 2-player game, each player is going to get 5 tiles. If it's a 3-player game, each player is going to get 4 tiles. And if it's a 4-player game, each player gets 3 tiles. The game will end when the player picks up the last tile from around the perimeter of the board. To set up, you'll set up your grid and then you'll put these tiles around it. But once the last tile is picked up, we're going to have one more round of play. Everyone's going to get one more chance until it gets back to the player that picked up the last tile, and the game will end and the scoring will happen. Scoring and winning in this game is pretty straightforward. What you're trying to do, which I'll show you how this happens in a little bit, is for each of these things that you have down, they have a little point value in this upper left hand corner. You're going to add up your points, and you're going to add up your points if you got any from the global, and the person with the highest point total wins. Let's finish up setup. So let's say I'm playing with a 4-player game, so I will get 3 tiles and I'll have my 5 cards, and no matter what the player count is, you're going to shuffle up these global objective cards, and 2 of them are going to come out. Now, these objective cards are going to be available for everyone. If you have the longest chain here, you'll get the 5 points, and if you complete the most objective cards on your final turn, you get the relentless card. So each of these are worth 5 points each. They'll be laid out here so they're visible for everyone. A couple things you can do on your turn are going to be place tiles out to earn objective cards, which I'll show you in a second. You can, if you don't place any objective cards, you can exchange as many or as few tiles or cards as you want. You can't do both. You have to pick one or the other, and you'll discard and replace those. You can either replace them from the market that's out, which at the start of the game, you're supposed to place 3 of these cards out. All right. And those will be available on your turn to complete your objectives. Now, objective cards are pretty neat. So basically what's going to end up happening is if you complete this card, you'll get these points. The symbol that represents the card is here. The requirement is here. If you meet the requirement, placing down the tile that matches this requirement here. I'll show you placing tiles and rules for that. Then you complete this objective and then go in your area. Some cards are going to be higher up on the food chain. So you have your cards that don't require any other animals to be around. They just require plants. Those are going to be your bugs and stuff. Then you're going to have some of your regular predators that are going to require to have something out here. And this is any. So any one of these, if they're out, you can place this on it. And when you do, you place those on top of the appropriate card, and that makes your food chain. So that card would already have to be out. This card would already have to be out that would match one of these symbols. And then I know this doesn't match, but if it did, you could place this one on it after you met the top objective too. And those would go into your area, and they would be available for points at the end of the game. And there's also, I don't have one in my hand, but Apex Predators. And just to mention again, these cards here you can play whenever. Some of them do have specific rules for when they can get played, but these don't count as the actions on your turn. All right, so a couple other things that you can do on your turn is, like I said, you can discard any, like I can discard any of these amount of these cards as I want. So if I pick cards or I pick tiles, and I didn't pass any objectives, I can discard those. When I'm discard the cards, I place them face up here in my discard, and I can either pick up from this area or the top of the deck. When I do the tiles, they have to come from the perimeter. So I discard the tile and I place them on there. The end of your turn is going to be draw up to your starting tile count. So I would draw up to 3 or discard down. And I would draw objective cards. I can, from this deck here, up to my 5 card count, or whatever your count is for your player. Or actually, you're always 5 cards. So you draw up to your 5 card amount, and you can replace the gallery cards here. So you have 3 again. Now, let's go over the objective cards in the game. So let's see if I can't do a couple things. We're going to cheat a little bit. So I'm going to flip a whole bunch over and I'm going to explain a couple different things. Now you'll notice that these have colors. So these colors have to go into the biomes of that color. Some of them have several different colors, like this one here can go into here or here. And when you place them down, if it's the first one in one of these little biomes to go down, you can put it anywhere you want. So let's say I place this one in the middle. Now I get these resources. Vines don't count as a resource, but I'll explain what those are in a second. These guys are going to be the resources that I have available. And on my turn, I could pick an objective card. So if I picked an objective card, so I'm going to pick this one, I can take this and put it in front of me. Then I place the tile that matches the objective card. I can play as many of the ones I want in my hand. And as soon as I do, this is done. I can complete as many objective cards as possible. And there's a couple ways that you could complete some of these objective cards pretty easily that have multiple things on them. And actually I was wrong, because the Strangler Vine or Strangler Fig does have vine requirements, which are on here. But vines are special for a different reason, and that's why I had a little difficulty with it. But a couple things with placing tiles. So the next tile that I put down has to, if it's in this biome, if I pick a different biome, I'm fine. But if I pick this biome, it has to be adjacent to the tile, one of the tiles that are already on it. In addition, it either has to match or not match at all. So I can place this one here and we're fine. That's good. I can place this one here and we're good. I can't place this here because it doesn't match, so I can't place this tile at all. There. If I place this tile here and I match these guys up, I get a really cool bonus. Now what the really cool bonus is that I get the resources from both tiles. So I get all 6 of these resources. So I could potentially complete a good amount of objective cards in the game. Another legal placement is I can place this fern here against this nothing here. Now, if I do that, it's legal, but I don't get the bonuses. I don't get these resources on here. I only get the tile I placed. Again, you can't do this. You could do this, and you can do that. Now, let's say I did this here, when you're placing tiles adjacent here, they don't matter. They don't connect up. So they're fine. So this is a different biome. With the exception, so we're going to adjust these around a little bit, of the vines. That's why they were special. If I place a vine and I connect a vine here, between biomes, I get to count the cards on all the attached tiles, even between biomes. Which there are several tiles in here that have straight, like this one has a straight vine through it. So you could get a large amount of resources with these vines. You can just connect them up through areas. So you could get tons, you can play lots of objective cards, and get lots of points. Your chain in the game can vary. You can have a lot of normal predatory animals in here. So you could have a good line of predatory animals, and then you can have like an apex creature on top. So you could create large chains on there. You don't really have to. You could just get a lot of points by putting down some of these, a large amount of cards. But you'll notice that the higher up on the food chain they are, the more points they are worth. I don't know the top. Let's get another one in here. I don't know why. So you can get, like here's an apex predator on here. You can see it's like worth 4 points. So you can get a lot of points for your apex predator and completing your chain. Now, one thing I didn't mention in the game is that there are these event cards. And if you flip one of these in the beginning of the game, just set it aside and shuffle it back into the deck when you're doing setup. So if you're putting out these 3 or you're drawing the cards into your hand, if you get one of these, just put them back in the deck. But when these occur during the game, you're going to stop the game. That person's turn ends and this occurs. So this one here, poachers, all players must pass all cards held to the player to their right. So you're basically going to stop. Everyone's going to pass their cards. The event has occurred. That goes into the discard pile. And you continue on. Some of these are pretty dramatic and fun. But that is going to be the gist of how to play Biome Borneo. And the game comes with these really cool player aids that pretty much summarize the main points of what you're going to be doing on your turn. So let's go ahead back up to the table here, and I'll give you my final thoughts on Biome Borneo. Okay, so I really liked Biome Borneo. It's a really fun, fast-paced tile placement game. The majority of the strategy of the game is going to be being very efficient in your tile placement, very smart on when you place your tiles. There's a lot of thought that you're going to have to put through on where you're going to place them and which biomes and such, to gain as many resources as possible, to place out as many of those gold cards as possible, to create your chains. I really like the thought that you have to put through on how far you're going to grow your chain, when you're going to start a whole bunch of little new ones, and basically the cards in your hand help drive how that's going to what strategy you're going to have, because those cards in your hands, you have more control over those than the market itself, so you can use them to try to plan out, especially some of those apex predators. I also like the action cards that you can play. Those add a nice little element to them, and the events that flip or disasters that flip add a nice little twist to the game when those happen. Now, I also like how the different canopies in the game have different heights to them. It didn't translate probably really well to the video itself, but the board itself is like three-dimensional. So your canopy is going to be the tallest, and your undergrowth is going to be the dark green one's going to be the thinnest. So it gives a nice 3D look to the game. You could also have a lot of variability in the game by moving around those layers and do different like configurations for each game. I like the global objectives in the game. Those are really nice to figure out. Overall, just a really good game. It's really fun, and I love the artwork for this prototype in there. I like it a lot with the different animals on there. The symbols for the animals was my only thing, was sometimes they're a little hard to see, but it's in your tableau, so you can look at it, or in your hand, or you can pick it up from the market, so it's not that bad of a thing. But yeah, overall, awesome game. Great tile placement game. I highly recommend checking it out, and that is Biome Borneo. Thank you for watching.